For many businesses, producing video content is important. Now, before we were able to hire crews or other people to come in and film us, however, at the moment, given COVID-19, we don't currently have that luxury. You may find yourself at home, like me, thinking, I need to produce video content. I'm gonna give you a few tips on how to get the best results at home, how to shoot on any device from a smartphone up, and what kit you might need to get that is relatively inexpensive these days. So I'm gonna pack all my kit away. I'm gonna be using just my mobile phone and a tripod, and I'm going to see what results I can get from just my flat and the natural light alone. Before I start the video, I would like to ask if you could like and subscribe to this video if you found it useful. Leave us any comments with stuff you'd like to see in the future below, and keep your eye on the channel for any future videos we'll be creating. Okay, so I've now switched to my iPhone. What you want to be doing is locking your camera down on a tripod, or as I'm using on a light stand. There are a lot of really cheap options for you now on Amazon. You can buy adapters to connect your phone to a tripod as well. These can range from upwards of £10, so they're really, really cheap to get. You can get small desk ones or ones that mount to your monitor. At the moment, I'm using the front-facing camera on my phone. Obviously, you can use the back one, and that would be preferable because it's by far always a better camera. However, so I can see myself in the frame and make sure that things aren't going tits up in the background, I'm using the front one. I can see myself. I can make sure that there's nothing distracting in the frame. In terms of orientation, a lot of time people will be videoing and they'll hold their phone how they would naturally be using it when they text. You want to make sure that your frame is wider than it is taller. As you can see at the moment, this is in landscape. If you are delivering something for something like Instagram stories or anything similar, you may want to consider going portrait where it's taller than it is wider. If I did have someone with me, I would probably be using the back cam. I'd swivel the phone round. I would have them looking at the screen and make sure my placement is correct, that I'm not drifting too much left and right, and to make sure it's all looking okay. But considering I don't have a second person and most people won't, I'd recommend using the front-facing camera. Now, once you've mounted your phone, you want to be thinking about where you're going to be placing it. I'm really lucky in this flat that we have these giant windows. I've pulled my seat very close to the window. I've placed my phone 45 degrees to the window. The rule of thumb is the larger the light source, the sort of softer and more pleasing it's going to look. If it's direct sunlight or a smaller source, then typically it's going to be a bit harsher. If I didn't have a giant window, then maybe I would use a lamp or something similar. I'd place it kind of above here, facing down. In terms of placement, you really want it to be kind of above you rather than below. Think of it if you've got a torch or a very harsh light coming from beneath you, it will create a lot of shadows. In terms of my background, I've refrained from being in front of any windows, typically because of the dynamic range of a phone. If you're trying to expose inside and there's a window off behind me, that would be incredibly overexposed and maybe kind of draw attention from the viewer, which is not what you want to be doing. In terms of the background itself, I've tried to pick an angle that isn't particularly distracting. There's no sort of like sudden movements going on in there, and it's not particularly busy. There's no horrible reflections. We have a TV and a fish tank just off the camera here. Those may be particularly distracting if they were sort of in the background. I've also tried to kind of declutter it the best I can. We had a lot of like blankets, and there was a table just here over my shoulder that I've kind of moved away of getting rid of. I kind of liked the plants and stuff here that my girlfriend keeps, so I've sort of used that as a bit of visual interest in the background. But you want it to be interesting but not too distracting that's going to take away from what you're trying to say. You just kind of look around your house and see what your best options are really, and try and find visual interest in your flat or house. But be careful in terms of placement. It might be a little bit distracting if you had a house plant sticking outside of your head. This photo behind me is probably just getting away with it. Maybe I would have considered taking that off the wall and having it just be plain completely, but I felt for the purposes of this video it was probably enough just to get away with. In terms of placement, I've got the phone about an arm's distance away from me. I find this particularly pleasing. It kind of keeps my head, shoulders in frame without being too close to my face and without me being too far away. Try and keep the camera at the same level as your eye line, as this is typically how you would have a conversation with someone in real life, and we're trying to emulate that as best as we can. Because phone cameras tend to have automatic settings, I'm not sure if it's apparent here, but if I'm moving around, the phone will try and kind of re-expose for the scene if I'm getting closer or far away. It seems to be doing okay, but what you might want to do is hold down here until it auto locks onto your face, and then you can kind of go up and down to kind of expose. You don't want any sort of spots on your face to be sort of white, because that means it's kind of too hot there. At the same time, you don't want it to be too dark. So I think where it was actually pretty good. As you can see, I think this works quite well. This means it kind of locks onto the exposure of my face. It means I'm a bit brighter and therefore sort of stand out from the background. Many people might refer to this as popping out from the background. So this is kind of the best way to achieve that. You naturally want your subject to be slightly brighter than the background because it draws the attention to the brightest point in the room, which you're aiming for you. In terms of placement, where you want to be in frame, there are sort of really two options. My phone lets me divide the frame up into 3x3 grid, where it has 2 lines going down and 2 lines going across. I'm placing myself on one of the lines going down, and then I'm having sort of my eyes sort of intersect at the top of the 2 lines. I also have a little bit of kind of space at the top of my head, and it's kind of cutting across at the chest area. I think this kind of looks the most natural on camera. Sometimes you might want to consider being dead center. What I would do then is kind of shuffle a little bit more here. My body is between the 2 vertical lines, and my face is kind of going in between the 2 horizontal lines. You can maybe lift, come up a little bit and have that top line kind of go across your eyes. But really, when we're looking at framing, this is kind of what the 2 options we can go with, and I think it will give you the best results. The other thing as well is you want to keep yourself in this framing so that you're not moving around too much. It's very distracting and it means your eyeline has to jump around quite a lot. Lastly, let's talk about audio. Throughout the video, I've been using the audio straight out of my camera. However, I do have a radio mic that I've hooked up into the camera, and I'm going to be switching to that. Now, most people tend to forget about audio when it comes to shooting video. We always think about video, quite obviously. Many people would argue that audio is as important, if not more important. This is a very kind of expensive microphone. There are better options. You can get anything from just a lapel mic from companies like Rode, which allow you to connect a lapel mic straight into your phone and record the audio in there. There's many different options out there, and I would highly encourage that if you want to continue this as a regular thing, you would look at that as an option, as it would really help up your video in audio quality. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please let us know in the comments below. Please feel free to click around and look at other videos in the channel. We're hoping to bring you more tips like this in the future. And once again, thanks for watching.